You know, there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. The Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hey, what's up? It's Shawn T, and you are rocking out with BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. And as always, bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. But before I bring on my guest today for the podcast, I want you guys and gals, please get out and check out our YouTube page. Just subscribe and follow us, please. And click on that notification bell, because that subscribe notification bell helps me out to do exactly what I want to do for everybody out there. So please do that for me. Today's guest here on BODS Mayhem Hour is Shawn T. He is a radio host, and he's done all kinds of things, wrestling, music-wise. So this is just an interview, just about a roundabout discussion of just two guys talking about stuff that we like. So, Shawn, how's it going, man?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you on here. Two guys talk about music and wrestling and all that.
Dude, I don't get those kind of opportunities very often. It's right in my wheelhouse. Like, I can talk about this shit for ever and ever. And like my girlfriend gets like annoyed. She doesn't like wrestling at all. Music, she doesn't know the names of people, but she likes music. But I can't do my story. So this is fun for me.
Well, you know what? That's when you get her down and you get her in a Norwegian toe hold. I guarantee you.
See, now I've had some friends like, well, just pick her up, body slam her, and make her watch it. And I'm like, I try, but she's meaner than me.
Yeah, she may do like a Ric Flair and poke her guy out, and then what are you gonna do? Be like a baby doll and spray the spray stuff in your eyes, the hairspray.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So let's jump right into this, my man. Something about the radio deal. You host a radio show, or you had a radio show, or you still do? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I used to do radio. I live in Las Vegas now, but I originally am from Des Moines, Iowa. And I did radio in Iowa for about 16, 17 years. I actually started before corporate radios took over. So back in the Rebel radio days, so I was in active rock, and got to have a lot of fun with big rock stars who became friends. When that kind of started to tame down, went to classic rock and did some country, because my musical knowledge and appreciation goes everywhere from the 50s on up. But technically, if I had a choice, I'm a rock and roll metalhead. But yeah, I did that for 16, 17 years. Corporate radio took over, took all the fun out of radio, left that 5 years ago. Was a regular DJ, like clubs and stuff like that, for 25, 27 years, something like that. Was a MMA ring announcer for 15 years, started when it was underground and built it up. And then did boxing, kickboxing, and 5 years ago had the opportunity to get back into professional wrestling as an announcer, and I've been having an absolute blast with that.
That's awesome. And we're going to stick on the music subject here for just a little, because back in the day, as you call it, Rebel Radio, that's pretty much what it was. You played exactly what you wanted to play. Every DJ had, you could play whatever you want to. There was no stipulation that maybe play one of the top hits that's out there right now in your set. That's it. Yeah. Now it's like, I want to go in, I want to play some Slipknot, or I want to go in and play some Amon Amarth, or something like that. Some Danzig, Danzig stuff. You can't do that.
No, the corporate levels, they've taken over. Once the government took off the cap of the number of radio stations any one conglomerate could own, it took away all the fun out of radio, because they bought it up so that you only had Clear Channel and Cumulus that bought everything. Then, of course, iHeart started branching off more into the internet stuff, and they're rumored to be selling off their terrestrial stuff eventually, which could possibly bring back the mom and pop radio stations and bring back some of that fun. But again, people are getting away from the terrestrial stuff and going to the internet radio stations, because it's a lot more convenient and they can pull it up on their phones, whatever they want, making it easier. But God, all the fun that you used to be able to have, like we would give away concert tickets by putting tickets into an envelope, throw it in a dumpster, and we would do dumpster diving in an alley behind the radio station with listeners live on the radio. Or we'd be at the fair and we'd have mullet and mohawk Mondays where we would sit at the booth and shave people's heads into mohawks or mullets, and all that stuff's done. You can't do that anymore.
Do you get more excited now when you hear independent bands versus our national love of bands that we have, man, that we grew up on? Do you get more excited about the indies now versus the nationals?
It's tough to say. I try not to be very old school minded, but my biggest beef now is not being able to tell one band from another because everybody's trying to sound the same vocals, the same musician sounds. And it really annoys me. As soon as I hear somebody that sounds like somebody else, it's like a mental block. It just shuts me off, and it turns me off, and I don't like it.
Do you think everything's oversaturated now with bands?
Yeah. That's the blessing and curse of social media. It's so easy for music to get out now that people don't need labels. Technically, you don't technically need terrestrial radio. Your stuff can get out on the internet. Your stuff can get out on YouTube, Spotify, whatever you want to do. So you don't need that stuff anymore. So yeah, it's saturated because it's easier to be put out into the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands though that deserve that spot. I mean, honestly, I've heard a lot of bands that you just randomly find on Spotify that's bedroom bands, as I call them, and they put their stuff up there, and they're really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm friends with guys in a band called Gemini Syndrome.
Yes.
Meeks Ruscone from Cold Chambers in there, and these guys are absolutely fantastic. And before I met them personally, I'd never heard Gemini Syndrome. Is one of those bands who's never got like mainstream terrestrial radio coverage. But when I started to listen to them, I was like, this is so good. It's like different. It's a cool kind of metal, but it's more thought provoking. Aaron, the vocalist, like his lyrics are insane. So they're one of those guys that are so good and so different. They just haven't got their comeuppance yet. But they're out there. They're playing the festivals. They're doing the tours. They're being seen. And we're trying to help push them out on social media as much as possible to get more eyes and ears on them. But yeah, it's easy. But at the same time, if you're not actively looking for that stuff, it's still kind of hard to find. But it's quicker by word of mouth and getting the dots connected by other friends and fans.
Sure.
So
yeah, like back in the day, you had the word of mouth, you had the mixtape, you had the flyers, stand outside the show, hand everything out like that. Man, now it's kind of gone away to the wayside, and there's some bands that are out there that are still street hoofing it, you know, staying to the streets about it. But if it's not on the internet, man, you might as well forget about it. That's just the way it is.
They found it's a lot easier just to be able to copy a link and email it to somebody or put it in somebody's messenger. And again, it's a lot easier and a lot quicker to get it out there. But if nobody technically knows how to find you after that, it's all for naught.
So what about if we had this style of social media back in the day, say like early 80s, stuff like that? Do you think we would have seen the likes of Slipknot or Cold Chamber or bands like that, man?
No, because see, again, that's the problem with nowadays. The problem is Spotify. The problem is all those streaming services, because you don't have to commit and go to the store and buy an entire CD. You don't have to go buy an entire tape. You're getting one-offs. So the big monies, the gold records, the platinum albums, like you had to commit to a band to physically go and buy their albums. So people got connected to them more, and now it's all instant gratification to where they just hear a song. They might like the song, but they're not committed to the band. So that's why you're seeing a lot of these bands that are coming in like a whirlwind and then they're gone.
Exactly. And And I hate to say this, and I've said this over and over and over, man. Me and you both probably the same way when I say this. I want that physical copy. I want that CD. I don't want, EPs are fine. It's cool with me. And I know nowadays you have to have a single out every 3 to 6 months or you're forgotten.
Yep.
Back in the day when me and you was still love music, I mean, we still love music. They don't know. I'm just saying, we're just going back to old school days when we grew up. Like, we had to go to the grocery store, the pharmacy, the bookstores, hell, even a gas station to hit paraders, rip magazines, and read about your favorite band. Because hell, only thing we had was MTV when they was good to find out if Guns N' Roses was coming out with a new album, Def Leppard, hell, even Ministry back in the day. You had or Doro, whatever, Judas Priest. Now it's
You look and besides just the CDs and tapes and stuff like that, you had the hit paraders, you had the Metal Edge. So people would go and purchase those as well to support their favorite bands. So the days of posters on the walls, again, gone by the wayside. So it all kind of ties hand in hand. People didn't understand it. They're like, oh, no, it's never going to change, never going to be that way. Yeah. And being as I was a radio guy, like we used to have the record reps that would come to the stations every month and do radio tours with artists, the new guys coming up. So we would get to meet these guys and get into them before we would play them on the air. Those guys, long gone. There are no more record reps. There are no more radio tours. You might get somebody that comes into a radio station when they come to your town, but even then, few and far between. So you're not getting that connection with bands that you once had. And that's why you're not seeing any of these groups sticking around. They're just here and gone because everything's instant gratification. The next big thing pops up, they're gone. Next one pop us in.
And I feel like it's way too much pressure on some of these young bands. It's like, let this one simmer, but no, we got to have something else. And they just fizzle out. They just don't know what to do.
Yeah, they literally don't know what to do. The people that they talk to are all old school minded, so they only have the old school ways of knowing what to do. Well, those rules don't apply these days. So if you don't have somebody that knows the ins and outs of the world now through social media, podcasts, internet, YouTube, stuff like that, even the new ways of marketing, if you don't have somebody that knows how to do that, you're going to get lost very, very fast, and you're not going to get the legs under you that you need to be even minusculely successful, because there's too many ins and outs now. It's not a one-way street. You've got side streets, by streets, alleys that you got to travel down just to be heard.
I remember back in the day that you could buy singles, like that. But now, and I remember in the magazines, they had those CD samplers too back in the day.
Yep. Yeah. Old school buddy of mine were just talking about those old dance collaborative CDs that used to be out, that you would get like the hottest hits on the top 40s all on one disc. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Not
Gone. There are no big hits. They don't last 16 weeks on the charts. They're gone in 3.
I want to throw this out here, man. What band are you shocked to see still putting out albums right now? To me, comes to mind is Priest, and Halford can still well it out there.
I love that the old schools are still getting their dues, because in my opinion, in my views, people are not happy with new music or new bands because there's no meat on the bone. So you still got these guys that are going out there and showing these young groups what to do. I don't want to use Motley Crue because that's just terrible, but you got Poison, you got Metallica, you've got Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Megadeth. I mean, these guys are still going out there selling out huge venues, stadiums, arenas, showing them how to do it, how to put on a show, how to work an audience. And people are attaching that at a younger age now because they're like, wow. And we're like, we've been rocking this shit for 30, 40 years, and you guys are just now getting it. But these younger bands don't have that. So they're not getting it. And for me, to me, it's crazy because I have the early knowledge, but Slipknot from Des Moines, I know the guys. I remember them playing in a little small 250 person club back in the day, and watching them to where they have gone now. And it's still just, I still get a little chuckle out of it, because it's hard for me to see them as the big superstars. I mean, they're just my weird friends.
Yeah.
But to see them where they're still at is absolutely insane. Still wearing the masks, still having all that shit going on. And to see people still getting into it is just crazy to me. But like I said, the Motley Crue thing, they should never have come back. Vince can't sing to save his dick, and poor Mick just looks like he's gonna die any second. But the rest of the bands that are on the tour are solid.
I want to jump into this right quick before we continue on, because I do want to talk about the Summer Stadium tour. Your thoughts on Joey Jordison when you seen him back in the day, man, coming up when Slipknot was just starting out as a band, man. When you saw him, what was your thoughts? And I know you probably hung out with him a lot too, maybe.
Joey was kind of private back in the early days. The first time I ever saw him was before Slipknot became a band. The first time I saw him was at this little club where on Wednesday nights would be like local night. And I walked in the front door, and this dude was doing a drum solo. And it was the first time I ever heard somebody drum so fast and so hard in my entire life. I could barely give my money to the door person, because I was already so like in tune to what was happening, because I'd never heard or seen anything like it. And then when that band was done, here comes Off the Drum Kit, and I was like, no way. But still to this day, I have never seen a person that can drum like him. In my opinion, besides the friendship level, not many people could touch that dude.
No, he was in a class by himself. Musically, he could play guitar like nobody's business. And a lot of people don't know that, other than Murder Doll fans.
Yeah.
He could
the Rejects, Murder Dolls.
Yeah, he could fucking wail on a guitar, man. There's no doubt about that.
He was just so little. That's what made it funny, because you just had this little Cousin It looking dude who looked like he was built like a 15-year-old kid, but he was just a monster when it came to playing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God rest his soul too. I got the opportunity to interview Joey, and just a good guy. Really seemed like a really good guy.
Did you catch him on a good sober day?
No, this was this is when he was in, Lord God, the previous band before he passed away. Not Murder Dolls. Not I cannot pronounce the damn name.
Yeah, I didn't get into those because those seem more forced, and that he was just trying to reclaim something. So I never got into them. But when you got Joey in a good mood and sober, dude was cool as shit. And his knowledge and appreciation of music was so insane. And he was great and fun to talk to. But when he was not in a good mood or wasn't in the best of shape, it was sad.
We'll jump back with the stadium tour right fast before we get into our wrestling stuff here. Poison Man is bringing it on that damn tour. I mean, they are bringing it.
Brett, I thankfully became friends with him probably 15 plus years ago, when he was starting out doing the solo tours and stuff like that. And that dude has always been solid in money, will never do anything half-assed. But when he brought back Ricky and Cece and Bobby, those guys still brought it, and they still sound exactly like they did back in the late 80s, early 90s. Sure. They still bring it. The energy's still there. They're charismatic. It's awesome to see that those guys can still do it and still pull the numbers they're doing.
And they seem happy compared to back in the day. You know, they seem
sober.
Happy. Well, that's true.
Sober. It's amazing what happens when you get sober and you enjoy life again and you get back to doing what you love to do. Like Cece, like I still hate his hair now, because I still want the big white platinum blonde Cece big wig. But God, that dude is so fun on the guitar.
Yes. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked, but I didn't know what I was going to get when I heard it. But when he ripped into the first Poison song, I was like, he hasn't lost anything, man. You know, I was like, holy shit. And normally when you go through a stage like he went through, you lose everything. And I mean, just like, it's like,
and that was part of the reason why Brett took off and did the solo stuff. Like Brett, when he got his life together a lot sooner than the rest of the guys did, and he still had the desire to go out and perform, but the other guys weren't in that frame of mind or in that shape. So he put a band together and started going out. And when he does the solo stuff, he now has Eric Brittingham from Cinderella in his band, who, when he got sober, he got back, started playing really, really well. And again, when these guys get sober at the ages they're in now, and they're able to show these young kids who didn't grow up on them what they missed out on, and now that's why they're drawing themselves to it, is because they're so good, and they can go put on the old records or CDs, and it still sounds exactly what it sounded at the arena.
I still listen to Poison to this day. I don't care.
Hell yeah.
Hate me, folks. I don't give a damn. But look what the Cat Dragon album opened up and say, oh my God, those two albums are awesome. So
I'm an 80s kid, dude. I'll always my throwback is 80s hair bands.
Yep.
But my second is new wave. So 80s is where I live.
Dude, I was even listening to Cinderella's Night Songs album the other night.
Yeah.
I was like, now this is good.
It sucked that LeBar's gone. I was really hoping to see them again, because Cinderella was so good together. It was almost like a magical experience. But it sucks that Jeff passed and Cinderella will never be ever again.
Me and Sean can sit here and talk about music all day long, but I just got to know, man. I got to know this though. With all these icon bands, I'm going to call them straight up icon bands, because these are the guys who paved the way for everybody else who's doing it now. What bands do you see possibly even coming close to maybe a Metallica-esque or Slipknot or nobody right now that you see? See, I'm kind of saying
no one can ever reach that level.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. When these guys retire, for real, stadium shows are going to be few and far between. Having the big icon rock festivals are going to be few and far between. The layout of these are going to be a lot more different once you see these guys gone. I mean, who knows how much longer we're going to have Rob Zombie or Korn, but like the Judas Priest, the Kiss, the Motley Crues, I mean, they're all like 70s, 60s, 70s years old. They're not going to be here much longer, and I hate thinking of what it's going to be like when they are gone, because it's going to be gone. It's going to be dead.
So let's talk about some wrestling, my friend. This is what we on here.
Love it.
Yeah, wrestling. I've been a huge wrestling fan ever since I was a kid. I'm sure you have been too, but I'm so grateful that AEW has now lasted for 2 years, because they have brought the fun back to wrestling, in my opinion. And that's just me personally. I think they have brought the fun back.
They brought an element that people were missing.
Yep.
Now, in my opinion, I think they're going a little too far and flying too dangerous. So you're starting to see a lot of these guys getting injured because of it. But they brought back something that people were missing. They brought back the excitement and the craziness of wrestling. They got bored with the PG stuff and all that. So it came at the perfect time.
So what got you into wrestling, man? What was it about it that drew you in and said, oh man, this is unbelievable?
I can't remember not watching wrestling. Like, it's been a part of my life, my entire life. Both grandpas on each side of my family were fans. They took me to the shows. So like, I got to go watch the high school gym wrestling shows with the NWA. So Bulldog Bob Brown and Ivan Koloff, Andre the Giant, Baron von Raschke, those guys, all the way to the arena shows where they were a little bit bigger, and you got the bigger guys. But then when WWF started getting larger, I got to watch all that stuff come up. But I honestly, I don't know what triggered it, but it's just always been there. And like I would do everything I could to skip Sunday school to get home to be able to watch wrestling, because if I didn't, I would only get like the last 10 minutes of it. It pissed me off every time.
Oh, yeah.
My grandma would get mad when I try to skip to go home and watch wrestling. But hey, priorities, man.
Man, I got to know this though. You said you saw Andre the Giant. What was your thoughts seeing him up personal than seeing him on TV?
Dude, it was the most crazy thing. It was the largest human I've ever seen in my life, to watch him walk through the crowd. And when I saw him, it was back before they had the 10-foot aisleways where it was just completely blocked off. Everybody was very close. So you just saw a sea of people, and all of a sudden this gigantic man was coming over the top of him. So you literally got like chest high above everybody else coming through the crowd. And as a young kid, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That is the biggest dude I've ever seen in my life. It was an experience that you could never imagine, because it's all different now. But then when you don't get to see that stuff on the daily, like on the internet, it's a magical experience right out of the gate.
Yeah, there's some that's come close to him. I mean, they had what, Elegante, and then I don't know who else would have been closest to him. Maybe Nash. Maybe.
Well, I mean, they exaggerated Andre's height all those years, but they were strategic in who they would put against him to make him seem larger than he was. So you got guys like Nash and Hall and Undertaker who weren't that much smaller than Andre. He was just girthy dude. But again, when you can see it anytime you want, pulling it up on the internet, you don't have that wow factor like you did then, because you only got to see him in the magazines or when it was on television, and that was it. So you didn't get that wow factor.
So would you say you was more of a WWE fan as a kid or NWA?
Well, of course, when WWF grew into the super show that it was, that's where you went. But luckily, I was the one that watched like WCCW, so World Class Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
I loved that. UWF, AWA. So being in Iowa, I got AWA out of Minnesota. I got Harley Race's stuff out of Missouri. So we got to see all this stuff in Iowa live. So I got to watch all that stuff from way back in the day, and then slowly watch it all just kind of dissolve into WWF when they started buying everything up. So I got to watch all that progression. So I watched the Road Warriors, who are my all-time favorite tag team, go from the smaller shows into NWA, WCW, WWF. And so I'm one of those lucky fans that got to watch all that stuff.
Yeah, man, it's cool. I got to see AWA, WWF, WCW, NWA, which I was a huge NWA fan. And I guess just because I'm a Southern boy, I got to see all that stuff.
It was easier for you.
Yeah, loved it, man. Loved it. But I loved AWA too, just as much, because Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, made his debut on AWA, which he did smaller stuff too. But before that, but then if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I believe it was Dan Spivey and Mark Calloway as the Skyscrapers in AWA. Then they came to, am I wrong on that? Or was it WCW?
Well, no, it was WCW. They went Skyscrapers, but Undertaker came in after, because if I remember right, it was Spivey and Hall that started it, and then when Hall bounced out of it, then
they brought Mark
Calloway. Yeah. Because you had the Skyscrapers, you had oh my God, what was the other one? The American Starship. I mean, yeah.
Lame names. Lame. But that was a cool part. They used the imagination, and nowadays it's gone, just like music, some of it, But back in the day, man, for me, it was the heyday. Because when I saw Nature Boy Ric Flair wrestle, at the time, man, he played his part to a T, because I absolutely hated him as a kid. But when I look back, I'm like, he was so damn good. And he put everybody over. Dusty Rhodes, Sting, Muda, Steamboat, all these guys, Brad Armstrong,
Yeah.
you know, all these guys. And I was like, wait a minute. So he actually was the good guy in a way.
He was the first dude that could ride that line between face or heel.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter because he could
Exactly.
go either way at the switch of a light switch.
Yep.
And be whoever he needed to be at that given moment. And to find somebody nowadays that could do that is few and far between.
Dude,
There's guys that could do it, but people keep ruining people and not allowing it to happen. Like Bobby Roode was fantastic in Impact and TNA. And I was like, dude, that guy could possibly be the next Ric Flair of this generation. But then when he got to WWE, they just destroyed him. Everything that he had, gone. The dude they're doing now, Max Dupree, they've ruined that guy, and now he has no place and no storyline in WWE. But they don't know what to do with guys anymore. They don't have the storytellers and the storylines to be able to carry that stuff on like they did back in the old days, because it's all instant gratification and they don't drag storylines on for months or years. It's maybe a week or two at best. So you're not able to build these guys up.
I like how they're doing with Danhausen. He's my favorite one right now. I love his character. I love what he does, and he fits perfectly. He does fit perfectly in wrestling right now. I don't care what anybody says. Danhausen is the man.
That dude's a trip.
He is. What do you ever see his character going anywhere at all, possibly, or no?
No, he'll still kind of be what he is now. He's the entertainment value of wrestling. Super nice guy, super knowledgeable. People love him. But he, as far as being like a main eventer or something like that, nah, it's just not his thing. And I don't know if he'll be around that long to get that. But that's the cool thing nowadays, is because indies are more prevalent than they've ever been in the history of wrestling. So guys are able to get their come ups in the indies and not need that big launching pad to be huge stars or make money or be noticed. So it's really not needed.
I'm shocked that Brian Cage is back kind of like in the indie deal, because I figured AEW would have just run with him, man.
He don't want it.
Oh, really?
He don't want it. Mm-mm. Brian, like I've asked Brian, I'm like, what the hell, dude? He goes,
Exactly.
why do I want to stay? He goes, all you're gonna do is run your course and become diluted and get boring, and people are tired of seeing you.
Yeah.
He goes, that's why I don't stay anywhere long. He goes, I'll go in, I'll do short contracts, go in, kick ass, destroy everybody, grab the belts, and then I leave. Go somewhere else, go back to the indies. That dude has made more money on the indie circuits than on any contract he's ever been in.
Wow.
And so he's become a millionaire on the indies because he's got that huge name behind him, and he has that notoriety from being on television without having to be on television every week to keep it up. He just goes back to the indies and keeps it going there and makes tons of money. And he can be home on the weekends if he wants, or home during the week if he wants, and chill with his kid and his lovely wife, and doesn't need to be on the road 300 some days a year.
Do you see a indie right now that you say, man, that kid or gal can make it? They can really go far.
Yep. It's become a lot easier for them. You got guys like Sammy Callahan that I work for at the Wrestling Revolver. We've been around now for 5 years, and we've kind of helped launch the indies into a more bright light, so to speak, because before, indies were kind of a throwaway of just kind of a stop between networks. And now it's become more fun doing indie shows because people are able to attach themselves more personally to the wrestlers. They're getting to meet them, shake their hands, be a part of the show, taking stuff from like the old ECW days where oftentimes fans can bring weapons or something to use into the show and be a part of the show. Guys are going out into the crowd and being a part of the stuff. whatever it is, they're able to attach themselves more personally to the indie shows than, say, a WWE show or an AEW show. So they're having more fun at the indies. And because of that, it's making them grow larger. And so when we started out, our first show was maybe 200-300 people, to now our shows are no less than 1,000-1,500 people every show.
That's awesome, man. That's really good. And folks, Sammy Callahan, if you don't know, he was in Impact, and I think he still does some in Impact, right?
Yeah, he just came back from injury in Impact, but yeah, he was in the Indies forever. Wrestled in Japan, wrestled all over the place. Got called to NXT as Solomon Crow. Didn't like what they were doing with him there, so he asked for his release. Got out of there, went back to the Indies. And then when TNA kind of changed things up and launched TNA, they started finding talent from indies to stock up their rosters instead of relying on the old guys. And Sammy got his home there, and has actually worked his way up to where he's one of the bookers and one of the huge guys behind the scenes of Impact. And because of that, it's carried over into our show. Because now he's able to develop talent on the Revolver end that is possibly being moved up to Impact. So like Speedball Mike Bailey, we had a hand in Speedball Mike Bailey, got his comeuppance. So he's a guy that everybody wants to be friends with and get around, because he's doing a lot for independent wrestling and independent wrestlers, period.
And I would love to pick his brain, because he fought Tessa Blanchard. So, I mean, like what, 3 or 4 times for the championship belt? I want to get his thoughts, or maybe did he talk to you about this? You know, like how important was that to him to have that match with her, or was it something that he didn't want to do, or was it something that he wanted to do?
They wanted to do it. Tessa and Sammy are really close friends. Same with Jessica Havoc. They're all super tight, because when Sammy and Jessica moved from Ohio, moved down to Orlando area, that's where a lot of the Impact people lived, was down there in Florida. So they all became like a little gang. So they were all really tight and helped each other. And that's where you saw the female wrestlers got out of like the female wrestling kind of stuff and started to fight like men, and started to have exciting matches. And these guys helped make that happen. So they pushed really hard to get intergender wrestling matches on television. So that was a big thing for like Tessa Blanchard and Jessica Havoc and Rosemary, was to have real wrestling matches, not the powder puff stuff that you would see back in the WWF days.
Working with Revolver these days, how much has that opened your eyes about wrestling, especially getting to know these people, not know them just as their character, but as the person? Because I know some of these guys and gals, it's hard for them to break character and to split that, say, hey, this is with wrestling. When I go home, I'm this person. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to decipher that, some of them.
Some are that way, but for the most part, they're actually pretty humble. They're actually like big kids. Doesn't matter if they're 22 or 42. They act like little kids. They love to game. They love to play pranks on each other. And if they accept you into their group, their circles, then they'll do anything for you. They're there for you. Like anything you need. You need a place to crash, they got you. You need a ride, they got you. You need help selling your merch because you got a match, they got you. So seeing these guys one-on-one and getting to know them personally and as friends, it's a lot of fun. And it's fun to have these behind the scenes interactions that people don't normally get, because to me, it makes me more of a fan of them. And it just kind of heightens my experience doing the shows.
What's been your best match that you've seen so far, Shawn, as working with the indies, man? What's been your best match that you've seen that, like, wow, this should have been on actual TV?
The one that sticks out, and I mean, there's a lot that have been really, really cool, but our first year as a company, we went down to WrestleCon in Orlando, WrestleMania weekend, and we put on a show at WrestleCon, and we had Shane Strickland versus Ricochet. And that match was over the top insane. Like, it was nonstop. People were on their feet, hair sticking up. Like, it was probably the most athletic, incredibly awesome match I had ever seen. And that still sticks in my head. And I've even told Swerve that, and told him about that. And he was like, dude, he's like, you don't understand how many people around the world still talk about that match.
And congrats to Swerve and Keith Lee on tag team champions of AEW now. So
super nice guys.
I was shocked when that title changed that quick, because I did not think that Young Bucks would turn that title over that quick. To me, it seems like they're doing the same thing like everybody else did, getting the young people or the old ones who deserve that spot a chance to put them over.
Well, they're getting a little better with their storylines, and so they did well with that, with getting Swerve and Keith, because I think there's legs in the storyline that they're creating with that. So I'd watch out for Swerve, that sneaky little bastard. I don't know what he's got up his sleeve, but if I know Swerve, expect the unexpected.
A little teaser, but I didn't do it. I didn't say it anyway. My friend,
well, we had him on Revolver, and he turned on his tag team partners. It was his second match back with us, and he had a faction with Matthew Palmer and Rich Swann, and the little bastard turned on him at the last event, pissed everybody off.
See, that's why they call him Swerve, because you don't know what he's going to do. Shawn, my friend, thank you so much for doing this interview. If folks,
totally.
If people want to keep in touch with Revolver Wrestling, all this good stuff that you do, man, how can you do that, good sir?
They go to WrestlingRevolver.com. Of course, catch us on social media. If you're on Instagram, PW Revolver. You check us out on Facebook at The Wrestling Revolver. But yeah, we got a show coming up the end of August. We're going to be in Ohio. And then we go back to Iowa September 17th. And we're working on a Texas show for the first time. We just expanded out into Las Vegas. So we're wanting to travel this show a lot more. So we're starting to get that rolling since pandemic. That's been a big thing for us, is to get it out there, because we're getting a lot of eyes on us all over the world. And especially here in the United States, that people are getting to recognize us, because unlike a lot of indie shows, we're starting to apply storylines into our shows and allowing them to go wherever Revolver goes, even allowing our titles to be defended in other organizations. So getting eyes on us that way. So because we're doing storylines, like, we're able to carry them around to shows, so people are able to kind of follow along when we get to their area. So I wouldn't doubt it if you see us over there in the South here before too long.
Don't get me excited. Don't you get me excited.
I'm telling you, dude, it's insane. If you've never seen Revolver shows, go on social, go on YouTube, watch the shows that we put on. Like, the matches that we have are insane. And if you're a wrestling fan, a wrestling lover, you'll love the stuff that we put out there.
I tell you what, folks, and I'm just going to drop this right now. I haven't said this to many people, but I am in the process of creating a new wrestling podcast. So Shawn T is going to be on the wrestling podcast with us a lot. So he's going to be coming on and doing some talking and helping. So I appreciate it so much for what you're going to do.
Absolutely, dude. Anything I can do, I'm here.
Before I let you go, would you do a promo for my show?
Sure. Hey, what's up? It's Shawn T, and you are rocking out with BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Please go check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and our YouTube link, and subscribe to that YouTube link, folks, because I told you, the 1,000 subscriber, we're going to come on here. We're going to eat a bologna sandwich. We're going to talk music and have a good old time, good old time, and all that good stuff. But please do that for me. Get out and check out Wrestling Revolver, Shawn T. You won't be disappointed, because if you like wrestling, these folks, I'm telling you, indie is where it's at right now, folks, because Just trust me. Also, I'm affiliated with Metal Inc. Forum Obscure, which is an online magazine that does album reviews plus obscure art, and Diary of the Madman, the Ultimate Ozzy Osbourne podcast with Dan and Josh. They know more about Ozzy than Ozzy knows about himself. And poor Ozzy needs all the help he can. But we love Ozzy.
Yeah.
We love Ozzy. God bless Ozzy Osbourne for being around. So, Shawn, thank you so much for doing this interview, man.
Yeah, buddy. Have a good one.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.